Friday. It's good. I think it's kind of good that it falls on Friday. I'm going to start class today. Ask you to pay attention. It's a bit of an anniversary for me, and I just want to share about this anniversary. Today, my good friend Rex, he was killed in Afghanistan in the year 2013. So I'm going to share this story with you today so that we never forget, right? You guys, where were you in 2013?
I was asleep.
7 years old? About 7 years old?
I was asleep.
About 7 years old?
No, I was.
Yeah. So I'm just kind of trying to show you where you were in 2013. 2013, I was in, I was 26 years old, and I was a first lieutenant in the Army. I was in Afghanistan. And what happened on this day, there's a picture of my friend Rex. And you can see that this is the sketch that's always been above my desk. Some of you have asked about it, throughout the year, and I'll tell you a little bit, but today's the anniversary, so today's the day I'm going to tell you the whole story. So I met Rex long before this day, long before March 11th, 2013, and I met him because he was in my platoon. Okay, my first job in the Army, I was a platoon leader, which means that I was in charge of about 35 soldiers, 35 soldiers in the United States Army. I was like 24 years old, and like this massive responsibility is handed over to you. But that's part of the training, the development, that's part of the life at the academy, is that I was being prepared to be a leader for these 35 Americans, fine young Americans. Now, I had help. I had people to rely on. I had sergeants who had more experience than me, and that's kind of a weird trade-off in the Army, is that the officer is in charge, but a lot of the people in the platoon have more experience. So there's kind of a trust building that goes on in that. And Rex was one of my sergeants. He was one of my squad leaders. He was in charge of a group of 9, and he was very good. He was the best. Like, he was among the best at all of Fort Stewart, 3rd Infantry Division. So I know I've talked about that before. Your hometown Army Division is the 3rd Infantry Division out of Hinesville, Georgia, Fort Stewart, Georgia. That's where I was when I met my wife, and that's what brings us back to Georgia, really, is that I was at Fort Stewart, Georgia, and that's how Georgia is a big part of my life. Anyway, I got to know Rex across 2011, 2012. He was one of my squad leaders. He was one of the best. He was actually from Oklahoma. So we immediately had this Oklahoma connection. He was 1 year older than I was. Okay, I was high school class of 2006. He was high school class of 2005. And he actually went to high school pretty close to where I did, although we didn't know each other. It wasn't one of those things where we knew each other. We did determine that we probably crossed paths one time at a debate tournament, and that sounds super nerdy, right? But we may have been in the room, right, at a debate tournament one time, but we didn't really know each other. At Fort Stewart, in the Army, we're like, hey, bro, you're from Oklahoma? I'm from Oklahoma. That's cool. So we kind of had an instant connection like that. Do a lot of training together, have a lot of long, hard nights. I remember one night in particular where there were just mosquitoes buzzing all around us, and we had to stay awake on the ambush line all night long for training. And, sometimes it's those hard things, those hard experiences that really you remember the most, right? Those practices where it's raining and muddy, and maybe you're not having fun at the moment. Maybe you think that your coach is being too hard on you for making you practice in the rain, but it's those things that you're going to remember the most. So I remember the mosquitoes buzzing around us. That's a memory I always have with Rex. Anyhow, our unit gets the orders to go to Afghanistan. It's kind of at the height of the war in Afghanistan, the war on terrorism. We go to Afghanistan, and our battalion had a really unique mission. This is actually a picture of the day that we left. So, I took a picture with Rex. We're excited. We're young. We're excited. He had been to Afghanistan before, so for him, it was his second time. For me, it was my first time. Obviously, I had no idea what to expect being at my first time. And he was really helpful to me in that because he was able to tell me what to expect. He was able to help me understand the country and the people and what combat might be like. Everyone's experiences are different, but he was super helpful to me in that regard. So this is the day that we actually left out of Fort Stewart, Georgia. And our battalion had a really unique mission. Normally, your unit would fight together like a team. Well, our battalion got split 27 different directions, and we got attached to a whole bunch of special forces teams, which that sounds cool, right? Special forces has a unique mission. So our 27 different small teams fit into a special forces team, and that was part of our mission. All 27 different groups had a very different experience. My experience was different than Rex's experience. Part of that is that I was not with him. I went one place, and I was leading my 10 guys. He went one place, and he was in charge of his 9 guys, and, of course, they fit into another special forces team. So part of the story is that we weren't together for most of the deployment, really any of the deployment. Well, we stayed in touch and actually do remember trading a few official emails and also a few Facebook messages because, you gotta be careful what you say, but you can still use a little bit of social media, all that kind of stuff. And I remember talking to Rex pretty much the 2 nights before March 11th, 2013. So I guess on March 9th, 2013, we traded a few messages. Hey, bro, stay safe. He said something about lifting weights and drinking protein and like getting swole, just bantering, right? That's the jokes we tough guys have with each other. We just talk about lifting weights. It's a different lifetime. Anyhow, on the morning of March 11th, I suppose we all woke up like any regular day. Sometimes you don't know what a day is going to, you never know what is going to unfold in the day. And we were in different locations. That's an important part of the story. I wasn't there, right? I don't have the experience of having been there, having been shot at, having been on the ground on that day, because I was elsewhere. I was at a different location. Well, in Rex's location, they were at a place called Jalrez. What you got? So we were at a place called he was at a place called Jalrez, and it was just a very tiny village in Afghanistan. And on that day, they were going to go out on patrol, much like you might think about a police officer is going to go out on patrol, right? They're just going to patrol the streets. They didn't have anyone that they were going after. They weren't going to kick down any doors and like raid a building. They're just going on patrol, just showing security to the village area. Well, before the patrol, it's very normal for the leaders to kind of get together. All right, guys, we're going to take this route. If we take contact, this is what we're going to do. Just a little bit of a leaders huddle, right? Just a meeting. Well, at that time, something on this patrol is that they were also going with some Afghans. Big part of the war in Afghanistan was that the Americans, us, we didn't want to do it all. We didn't want to be the police force in their country. We wanted to train them to be their own police force in their country. So part of the patrol was that some Americans were leading a larger Afghan force. We were showing them how to patrol, how to use weapons, how to have tactics, how to have discipline. A lot of times the Afghans would just like to sit down and like take a break. You can't do that on patrol. So we really had to train them on discipline. Anyhow, that's an important part of the setup. The leaders are having a huddle. They're chatting about the mission. And there's an Afghan soldier who, in the end, we would know him to be kind of a turncoat, a traitor, an infiltrator, if you will. He joined the Afghan army somewhat legitimately. He was in a uniform. He went through all the training. But his intentions, this person's intentions, was always to do a suicide attack on Americans. So on this day, about to go out on patrol, he takes an American gun on top of a truck, and he turns that gun towards the leader's huddle where Rex is standing, and he opens fire. And he starts shooting. In the end, he kills 2 Americans, to include Rex, and wounds many, many more, like physical wounds and then also mental wounds. The people who were there that day experienced a lot of trauma. And I know a lot of people are thinking about March 11th this morning because they're my friends, they're my comrades, and we talk a lot, especially on days like this. So in that moment, Rex was killed probably instantly. Another man was killed, and that's actually the team captain. His name is Andrew Peterson Keel. Rex on the left, Andrew in the middle, and then there's also a military working dog killed. And that's military working dogs are an important part of the force as well. So these 3 were killed on that day at that time. I think the other casualties was 20 plus. I mean, some guys got shot through the shoulder, a big wound. Other guys got just kind of grazed, small issues, hearing issues, all that kind of stuff. About 20 plus people were injured overall. And on that day, I distinctly remember I'm elsewhere, right? I don't know that this is happening right away. But radio reports start to come in from all over, right? And frantic radio reports, sometimes you can hear it in people's voices that they're nervous, like, it's a tense situation. And we understand that there's a firefight. We understand that there seems to have been some casualties. So we're listening very closely. There's not a whole lot, I can't do anything. I mean, I was about to say there's not a whole lot I can do. There's not anything I can do. I was just listening. And then from the radio, across the radio comes the name, when actually we'd always use just the first letter and then some numbers. Everybody had a number associated with them. So it was Sierra, S for Schad, and then his 4 associated numbers. And I'm looking at my roster, and I see that it was Rex. And that was my moment of knowing that Rex had been a casualty in this firefight. So, very formative moment for young me. Like a swirl of emotions, right? A friend has been killed in combat. Big life experience right there. Well, I'll just fast forward the story a little bit. What I did was I ended up becoming his escort home. Whenever a soldier is killed overseas, we always escort him home with honor. It's actually called a fallen angel escort. He was the fallen angel, but then I was privileged to be his escort. I mean, it was his journey home. Like it's his final conclusion of his mission, like his journey on life. He was taking him home. And the reason, of course, for many reasons, I wanted to escort him home, but we took him home to Oklahoma. Took him right home to Oklahoma. And I'd never met his family previously, but I was able to meet his family throughout this experience. It ended up being 3 weeks total, and kind of a lengthy process where, of course, I was not in Afghanistan. I was on another mission, and part of that mission was caring for the family. Part of that mission was attending the funeral, and they even asked me to speak at the funeral. I didn't plan on that. It wasn't part of the deal, but they asked me to speak at the funeral. And what I give to you on that is sometimes you got to be prepared to do things that you're not even ready to do. So a couple more pictures here. This is these are the 2 bodies being carried home, flag draped coffins. I mean, this was part of my missions. I escorted Rex's coffin home, and then the other fella had an escort as well, and I got to know that guy across the time as well. But this is how I like to remember Rex. This is what I like to think about Rex as. This was just a couple days before he was killed. These are the type of patrols that they were doing, right? They weren't kicking in doors and arresting bad guys. They definitely weren't shooting. I mean, they weren't shooting at innocent civilians. They were handing out candy. They were hugging babies. Like they were taking care of the village. So this is the Rex that I like to remember. And of course, it was obviously it's a tragic moment that he was taken from Earth too soon. And then this is a picture of me speaking at his funeral. Like I said, I didn't plan on that, but sometimes you got to rise to the occasion. Sometimes you got to be ready for something that you're not ready for. The family asked me to speak, and I was privileged to give some of my reflections about Rex. I want to read you this real quick. This is not what I said at the funeral, but this is something I posted on Facebook in 2014, like the 1-year anniversary. So if you'll just hang with me for a few more minutes. This kind of speaks to why we went to Afghanistan in the first place. So in about 3 hours Afghanistan time, 1 year ago, on March 11th, I first heard of contact at VSP Jalrez in the Wardak province, and I was gut punched when I heard a battle roster number starting with S come over the radio. Initial reports that 369 soldiers were wounded, and our command immediately began coordinations to visit these soldiers in the hospital. I scratched out quick notes to all of them. They were all in my platoon for the chaplain to deliver for me. To Rex, I wrote that he better get quick. I wrote to get better quick because we had some baseball to watch and some soda pop to drink later that summer. That letter was never delivered, and we all know why. It's been a long year, and I've frequently been sad and hurt, full of memories and thoughts of the things we used to do at different times on the calendar, 1 year ago, 2 years ago, or things that we should still be doing now. I'm not his blood, but we are family, and his absence hurt like the loss of a friend, a comrade, and a brother. I will forever have been honored to have been his escort home. He was the fallen angel. It was his journey, not mine, but I am forever changed for having accompanied him along the way. To anyone who would say, this is the important part right here, to anyone who would say or think that Rex died in vain, I want to remind you or educate you of this, the solemn promise that the American people made to themselves following the Civil War. It was a promise to never again engage an enemy on American soil. Rex and everyone in uniform, no matter what their job is a part of upholding this promise. In the year 2013, 2014, whether you went to Iraq, whether you've been anywhere in the world in the United States military and beyond. Rex was literally taking the fight to the enemy on the other side of the world so that the trash on the side of the interstate here in America is just exactly that. It's just trash. It's not a roadside bomb. And so that the high ground is a good place to watch the sun set or the sun rise, not a place that we have to think about an enemy sniper beam or someone making an attack on you from that piece of high ground. Why are we in Afghanistan, or should we still be there? The public seems to ask daily. It's so that people like the Taliban isn't here in America. Rex died preserving this solemn promise that is still real and still kept today. So that's a true piece of history. Sorry, I'm sweating. It's fun here. That's a true piece of history. Following the American Civil War, where we fought each other, and a lot of people died on our own soil. The American people made a promise to ourselves that we would never again fight in America. We would take the fight to the bad guys elsewhere. And that's why September 11th was such a sucker punch. It's because we were attacked on our own soil. So why do we go to Afghanistan? And you guys grew up in a time period where, we were always at war, Afghanistan or Iraq. Why do we go to Afghanistan? It's so that we don't get fought here. And we can see that coming into play, some current events. Ukraine is fighting for their own hometown right now. Ukraine is fighting for their own homeland right now. In America, we send our soldiers somewhere else so that we can be safe right here in America. We don't have to worry about roadside bombs. We don't have to worry about snipers in buildings. We don't have to worry about making Molotov cocktails because we send our soldiers elsewhere. So all that, thank you for listening. I appreciate your respect and attention. This is last little thought here. This is something that's at Fort Stewart. This is a long walkway of trees. It's a memorial walk. It's called Warriors Walk. And there's a tree that's been planted for every Fort Stewart soldier who died in Iraq and Afghanistan. Now, Fort Stewart the 3rd ID has a long history of soldiers in combat all the way back to World War I. But Warriors Walk in particular is for Iraq and Afghanistan. And this is Rex's tree. So the tree is something that's kind of special to me. It's a place I've visited a lot over the years. This is a picture of the tree. And then I will just round out this conversation briefly by showing you I think the last time I went to the tree, I made a quick video. So we all can't go to Fort Stewart today, but I'll do the best I can to show it to you. And we can all think about Rex on this day. I look forward to seeing you all on Monday.
I know about my friend Rex before, and I described how Fort Stewart has this special place of remembrance for all fallen 3rd Infantry Division soldiers, and it's called Warriors Walk, and it's one tree planted for every 3rd Infantry Division soldier who was killed in the recent global war on terrorism. That's the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. And I'm standing at Rex's tree, and see, it's pretty special place. Pretty quiet. Show you all around me. How deep it stretches. Every tree represents a soldier killed in Iraq or Afghanistan. And there's actually another section to the far side where I'm standing right now. But I'm standing at Rex's tree. Been here many times over the years, but not recently. And I'm happy to be here, think about my friend, and show it to you all as well. You can see it's got a nice setup. There's his name. The base of the tree, people have left things across the years. And I personally left these marathon medallions. That's what I did for a couple of years, thinking about Rex every time I ran a marathon, and I bring the medal to his tree here. So overall, it's an overcast morning as it is, but man, I've never seen the trees this full before, and it's a little too shady. It's too many of them. So if you're watching this, just take a second, think about Rex. Miss you guys, love you guys. See you soon.
All right. So should you ever have a chance to go to Fort Stewart, I know they've actually been shut down recently, COVID, and you have to have military ID to get on, but if you ever get a chance to go to Fort Stewart, I would definitely recommend and share with you that you go check out Warriors Walk. Think about the soldiers that have done things, hard things, and even given that last full measure of devotion, given their life in the defense of this country. And I'll close with this. There's an old saying that a person dies twice. Once when they breathe their last. That's when we think about someone dies, right? We have their funeral, we bury them. A man dies once when he breathes his last. A man dies again when his name is spoken for the last time. So I'm going to keep speaking Rex's name as long as I have breath, sharing his story and reminding young people like yourselves of what it costs in Afghanistan for us to be living in America we are in today. So thank you for your time and attention, and share my heart with you a little bit. And the room got a little hot, so I got a little sweaty. But again, thank you for your time and attention. And if you got any questions, I know I've explained it to a couple of you, and that picture will always be there. So now when you look at it, maybe you can think of it just a little bit differently. So we're kind of right on time for our bathroom break, so we'll take a pause for that. When we come back, we'll round out our Friday.